Good day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and welcome to our day and night-long coverage of the return from the station of 3 of the crew members who have occupied places on the International Outpost for the past 4 months. We'll talk about all the particulars of the homecoming of Kate Rubins, Anatoly Ivanishyn, and Takoya Onishi in just a moment. First, let's set the stage. Here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers is on console at this hour, led by Flight Director Courtney McMillan in the center of your picture. On her left, on the far right of your screen, is Flight Director T.J. Kramer, a former astronaut who also has ridden the Soyuz to and from the International Space Station. On the far left of your screen is spacecraft communicator Nicole Mann, the astronaut who will be talking to the crew on board the International Space Station throughout the course of the afternoon and the evening. The actual operation of bringing these 3 crew members home from the International Space Station on the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle today is in the hands of the Russian flight control team, half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. The Russian flight controllers have been on station throughout the course of the day, checking out all of the Soyuz systems, talking to the crew on board the International Space Station as they prepare for what should be the final farewells and the closing of the hatch to the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle within the next 20 minutes or so. The 3 crew members who are poised to come home to complete their 4-month mission in space: NASA flight engineer Kate Rubins, the Soyuz commander Anatoly Ivanishyn, and Takoya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. They launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan back on July 7th, arrived on board the International Space Station on July 9th, docking their modernized systems spacecraft, the first in the new genre of Soyuz vehicles, the MS-01, docking to the Rassvet module of the International Space Station back on July 9th. That is on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. The departing, and there's a good view of the Soyuz vehicle that will be departing from the Rassvet module. Its undocking is scheduled about 3 hours and 47 minutes from now. Undocking by this crew that is returning home for a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan is scheduled at 7:35 p.m. Central Time this evening. We'll be talking more about all of that activity and the return trip home for these 3 crew members in just a moment. As we said just a moment ago, the International Space Station, its 6 crew members, soon to become a crew of 3, currently orbiting the Earth at an altitude of 251 statute miles, flying over the extreme South Atlantic Ocean, south of the southern tip of Africa, about to begin a southwest and northeasterly track that will carry the vehicle and its occupants in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. The target for the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle and its 3 crew members will be a very remote area on the steppe of Kazakhstan to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan in Kazakhstan. That landing, which will occur on Sunday morning Kazakhstan time, is scheduled at 10:59 p.m. Central Time this evening, which will be 9:59 a.m. in Kazakhstan. This area, this typical landing site, will see the Soyuz moving from a track from southwest to northeast. Its parachute will be deployed about 15 minutes before touchdown with a team of Russian, U.S., and Japanese support personnel who flew to the town of Zhezkazgan in a series of 10 Russian Mi-8 helicopters accompanying the Rosaviatsa search and recovery teams. They flew to Zhezkazgan very, very early this morning, U.S. time. They have been housed in a hotel in Zhezkazgan and are up and around at this hour, soon to make their way to the Zhezkazgan airport to reboard those Russian Mi-8 helicopters for about a 30 to 35 minute flight down to the landing site, where they will deploy in a racetrack fashion, an oval-shaped fashion around the landing site, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz MS-01 and its occupants.
And also,
once undocking occurs about 3 hours and 45 minutes from now, Expedition 50 will officially begin aboard the International Space Station under the command of NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, who took over command of the International Space Station yesterday. We'll be looking at that change of command ceremony replay in just a moment. Kimbrough launched just a few days ago, just 10 days ago, in fact, with his Russian crewmates Sergei Ryzhikov and Andrei Botasenko. They arrived on board the International Space Station just 8 days ago for an expedited handover with Rubens, Ivanishin, and Onishi. It has been a very active time with 2 launches sandwiched around tonight's landing by the crew. The Kimbrough crew, again, will be starting the formal Expedition 50 increment on board the International Space Station under the command of Shane Kimbrough at the time of undocking. Official increments are marked between undocking and undocking aboard the International Space Station. As we said, Kimbrough took over command of the International Space Station just 24 hours ago in a change of command ceremony where he accepted command of the complex from the departing Soyuz commander, Anatoly Ivanishin. Let's take a look at Friday's change of command ceremony that took place aboard the International Space Station in the Destiny Laboratory.
Good day, Houston, Huntsville, Munich, Tsukuba, and Moscow. Expedition 49 to International Space Station is coming to its end. I think time is a very interesting and not fully understood phenomena. I have a feeling that we came to the space station just yesterday, and tomorrow it's time for us to undock and go back to our planet. Maybe this is because we are traveling at the speed of 8 kilometers per hour. Maybe there is some other reason. Time is very special here in space. And I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for all of your support of Expedition 48. We do have some achievements, successful Cygnus capture, new Soyuz docked and progress undocked, a lot of science done, routine maintenance, and all of this would not be able without your help, without your support, your hard work, planning, and taking care of our being on space station. I'm kind of reluctant to close the hatch because being on the space station is a very unique experience. And first of all, I didn't have time to know what's going on our planet, and second, maybe it is for the better. And now, and being in the space station, you live in a very friendly, very really good environment of people who are working together, and we came from different nations, we speak different languages. But being in a space station, we feel like one crew, a crew of International Space Station. And I understand that as soon as we are back on our planet, we will know what's going on there. And lot of the things that go in there are really good and we like it. And here, we don't have time to know about it. And that's why we will be missing the space station, this very unique environment. So I would like to thank you one more time and just give mic to a new commander.
Thanks, Anatoly, and it's really an honor and a privilege to take command of the International Space Station. The 49 expedition crew has done an amazing job. Some of the accomplishments Anatoly mentioned earlier, but you guys have done a lot. You've done record-breaking science and research, spacewalks, robotic operations, many vehicles coming and going. So you guys have done a lot, and you should feel very proud of your accomplishments. We're sorry we were only here a week with you. You guys have trained us well, though. We're ready to take charge of the space station on the Russian and the U.S. side, and we will certainly miss you guys. Of course, like Anatoly said, none of this could be done without the support of our families and all the people in the mission control centers and the training centers and the vehicle processing facilities and launch facilities. So thank you to all of you who allow this to all to happen and for us to get this incredible, incredible experience. We want to keep you guys longer, of course, but there's a lot of people on the ground waiting to see your smiling faces. So Andre, Sergey, and I would like to wish you guys safe travels home tomorrow and soft landings. Expedition 49 departing.
Station, those are excellent words, Commander Anatoly. We really appreciate what you had to pass on to us, and on behalf of all of us on the ground that supported your mission. As you mentioned, there's a lot of work that goes on here. I'm sitting amongst a bunch of heroes on the ground that have done some great work, but we just want to relay to you, it was a pleasure to watch your crew work in orbit, and to serve for you guys was an absolutely amazing experience for all of us here. So we very much appreciate your work. You set the bar high. To the new expedition and Commander, we know the ship is in good hands, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. So Godspeed on your trip home tomorrow, Expedition 49, and best of luck on future work.
Thanks a lot, Houston.
Enjoy your evening.
And back here in Mission Control in Houston, that was a replay of the change of command ceremony that took place yesterday afternoon, Friday afternoon, aboard the Destiny Laboratory in the International Space Station, as Anatoly Ivanishin, the veteran Russian cosmonaut, handed over command of the complex to NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, who will be commander of Expedition 50. He is commander of the station as we speak. The official demarcation point to begin Expedition 50 will occur when the Soyuz MSO-1 vehicle with Kate Rubins, Ivanishin, and Takoya Onishi aboard undocks from the station about 3 hours and 36 minutes from now. When Rubins, Ivanishin, and Onishi complete their mission with a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan just after 10:59 p.m. Central Time this evening, they will have completed 115 days in space, 113 days on board the International Space Station. They launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan back on July 7th. They will have completed 1,840 orbits of the Earth and a mission spanning 48.6 million statute miles. Ivanishin, with his 115 days in space, completing his second flight off the planet, and a total of 280 days in space on his two flights. Of course, for Rubins and Onishi, their first flight apiece, 115 days in space over those two increments, expeditions 48 and 49. This trio saw the arrival of 4 visiting vehicles during the course of their time aboard the station. One Russian Progress resupply ship, the Progress 64 resupply vehicle. One SpaceX Dragon resupply ship that carried the first international docking adapter to the International Space Station that was attached to the forward port of pressurized mating adapter number 2 by Rubins and Jeff Williams during a spacewalk back in August to accommodate the future arrival of U.S. commercial crew vehicles. They also oversaw the resupply vehicle, the Cygnus resupply ship from Orbital ATK that launched just a few weeks ago from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. And of course, the Soyuz MS-02 vehicle that carried Shane Kimbrough, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Andrei Borisenko to the International Space Station for their arrival just 8 days ago. The departure of the Soyuz MS-01 and its three occupants, Rubins, Ivanishин, and Onishi, will begin just a few hours from now with the physical separation of the Soyuz vehicle from the Rassvet module you see in this animation. Hooks will open, the Soyuz will depart. There will be a series of separation burns from the Soyuz that will send it to a safe distance well away from the International Space Station for a 4-minute, 37-second engine firing of the Soyuz engine, a retrograde braking maneuver that will take place at 10:06 p.m. Central Time to slow the Soyuz down, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. There will be a pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz. The crew is strapped into the middle section, or the descent module. The heat shield on the Soyuz will be exposed through that pyrotechnic separation to repel the heat as the Soyuz barrels through the atmosphere. And as it approaches the landing site, a drogue chute followed by the deployment of a main parachute will take place to slow the Soyuz even further down. The Soyuz will then be targeted for its landing at a point southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, with a final braking maneuver of the soft landing engines just a second or two before the Soyuz touches down, with landing scheduled at 10:59 p.m. Central Time. That'll be 9:59 a.m. on Sunday morning in Kazakhstan at the landing site, 1 hour, 55 minutes after sunrise. With the departure of Rubins, Ivanishин, and Onishi, Shane Kimbrough and his two Russian crewmates, Andrei Borisenko and Sergei Ryzhikov, will be a three-man crew aboard the International Space Station for the next 3 weeks until the arrival on board the complex of the next trio of residents for the International Space Station. Veteran NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson and Oleg Novitsky of the Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos, and Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency are in the final stages of their preparations to launch on the Soyuz MS-03 vehicle from the Baikonur Cosmodrome at 2:20 a.m. Baikonur time on the morning of November 18th. That'll be 2:20 p.m. Central Time here in the United States on November 17th, embarking on a 2-day journey to the International Space Station to link up to that same Rassvet module docking port, which will see the departure of Rubins, Ivanishин, and Onishi in just a few hours. Their arrival on November 20th, just after or right around 1 a.m. Moscow time, which will be in the evening or the late afternoon hours of November 19th U.S. time, will start their time on board the International Space Station. Peggy Whitson, Oleg Novitsky, and Thomas Pesquet joining Kimbrough, Ryzhikov, and Borisenko to resume a 6-person presence on board the International Outpost. We're about 10 minutes away from the point at which Rubins, Ivanishин, and Onishi will be gathering with their 3 crewmates in the vestibule of the connecting the Rassvet module of the International Space Station to the hatchway of the Soyuz MSO-1 vehicle. They will say farewell to one another, and Rubens, Onishi, and Ivanishin will then board the Soyuz spacecraft to begin the process of closing the hatch, conducting leak checks, donning their Sokol launch and entry suits, and preparing for their undocking about 3.5 hours from now. For those keeping track, a couple of updated times by about a second or so of some of the key events that will take place. Again, the physical separation of the Soyuz MSO-1 vehicle will occur at 7:35 p.m. Central Time, 8:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Springs on both sides of the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Rassvet module will push off against one another, enabling the Soyuz to depart the Rassvet module and thus officially beginning Expedition 50 on board the International Space Station. 3 minutes after physical separation, there will be an automated 8-second separation burn using 4 of the Soyuz thrusters that will impart about a 0.5 of a meter per second opening rate. That will be followed just a few minutes later by a second separation burn that will further increase the opening rate distance between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. The Soyuz then will begin its progress to a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn that will take place at 10:06 and 35 seconds, 10:36, 10:06 and 35 seconds p.m. Central Time. This will be a 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to begin its descent out of orbit back toward the Earth's atmosphere. At a range of about 250 kilometers away from the International Space Station, we should start to lose voice communications through the VHF antennas just because of the distance and the geometry between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. That will occur somewhere around 10:32 p.m. Central Time. About a minute and a half later, at 10:33 and 40 seconds p.m., we'll see the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle. As we mentioned before, the orbital module, which is the top section of the Soyuz, the center section being the descent module that the crew will be strapped into, Ivanishin in the center seat with Takoya Onishi in the left seat as board engineer number 1, and Kate Rubens in the right seat of the descent module as board engineer number 2. The separation of the modules thus exposes the heat shield of the Soyuz to the punishing temperatures as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, with temperatures around the Soyuz building to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit during the plasma buildup that will begin. The entry into the plasma regime for the Soyuz expected around 10:37 and 56 seconds p.m. Central Time. That will also begin the controlled entry guidance of the Soyuz as its computers hone in on the landing site in the steppe of Kazakhstan. The Soyuz's regime in the plasma atmosphere that the crew members describe as a fireball outside their window will last for about 5 minutes or so, with the exit from the plasma expected at 10:42 and 47 seconds p.m. Central Time. Just a couple of minutes after that, the command will be issued to begin the deployment of the parachutes for the crew on board the International Space Station. That parachute deployment is done in a sequential fashion. First, two pilot parachutes are deployed, the second of which extracts a drogue chute. The drogue chute is then released. That measures about 24 square meters, slowing the Soyuz down from a descent rate of 230 meters per second to just 80 meters per second. That will be followed in short order by the deployment of the main parachute, which covers an area of about 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of just 7.2 meters per second. Its harnesses first allowing the Soyuz to descend at an angle of 30 degrees to expel heat, then shifting the Soyuz to a straight vertical descent. Landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan is now scheduled at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time, 9:59 and 13 seconds a.m. on Sunday morning at the landing site for the Soyuz Modernized Systems 01, or the MS-01 spacecraft, and its 3 occupants. The coordinates for the predicted landing of the Soyuz: 47 degrees 18 seconds north with a longitude of 69.34 east. That would put it about 148 kilometers southeast of the town of Jezkazgan on the south-central steppe of Kazakhstan. The weather forecast, which is currently being updated by the Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center, is calling for a broken deck of clouds at about 4,000 feet with winds out of the southwest at about 7 knots and a landing time temperature just above freezing at about 34 degrees Fahrenheit. The weather has been even colder to the northeast of the landing site in the deployment city of Karaganda, where the NASA team of landing support personnel first gathered a few days ago. The head of the NASA delegation for landing is Sean Fuller, who is the Director of Human Spaceflight Programs in Russia. Fuller is joined by Kenny Todd, a Senior NASA Manager for the International Space Station Program, astronaut Joe Acaba, a veteran of both shuttle and Soyuz missions to the International Space Station. They are joined by a JAXA team of personnel from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. The JAXA team also including a flight surgeon for Takuya Onishi, the NASA team with a flight surgeon, Dr. Steve Hart, who will be attending to Kate Rubins at the landing site, and of course a complement of Russian search and recovery personnel, as well as nurses and Russian flight surgeons who will be attending to the crew as they are extracted from the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle at the landing site. The International Space Station is currently flying 252 statute miles over Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, moving from southwest to northeast, soon to cross the northern tip of the Philippine island chain, and then just off the east coast of Japan.
That's surface, so we are very happy. Thank you. Okay, copy. Yeah, Vladimir, I can hear you saying that you get the video and that you're happy with the video that you get.
And there is a view from a camera inside the passageway in the Rosviet module of the International Space Station.
Get ready for the event, please.
Looking at the hatchway of the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle, we're expecting the crew to be gathering in that area just a few moments from now for their final farewells and the closing of the hatch that will mark the start of the crew's preparations for departure. Once they're inside the Soyuz and all buttoned up, Anatoly Ivanishin will be flying under the call sign of Irkut. Each Soyuz commander selects their own call sign for both launch and landing operations. After landing later tonight, the 3 crew members will be brought into a nearby medical tent for post-landing medical tests. They then will board 3 helicopters for about a 2-hour helicopter ride back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, to the northeast of the landing site. There they will participate, if they are up for it, in a short welcoming ceremony, a traditional Kazakh welcoming ceremony. And then they'll split up with Takoya Onishi and Kate Rubins boarding a NASA jet for a long flight back to Houston. Ivanishin will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for the flight back to his training base in Star City on the outskirts of Moscow.
Зупинка СС Г2, B2.
Moscow Station, Space Ground 2, this is FV2. Go ahead, Andre.
Готовы приступить к закрытию люка со стороны МИМ-1.
We're ready to put the MRM-1 side hatch closure into work, if you are.
По вашему указанию.
And while we were in a loss of signal period, handing over between satellites on the tracking and data relay satellite system, the departing crew, Rubins, Ivanishin, and Onishi, actually made their way inside the Soyuz MSO-1 spacecraft. We did not see that in real time. The hatch to the Soyuz vehicle was closed in the neighborhood of about 4:12 p.m. Central Time.
Так, Андрей, СРП Сериков. Ответь.
На связи.
Andre, this is your SRP.
Ну, вот там же ваш часовой репортаж, закрытие люка, репортаж-то будем проводить?
So are we going to be getting the video
Готовы проводить
of the hatch closure?
люка.
Yeah, we're ready to get started on that, sir.
Люк со стороны МИМ.
The hatch on the MRM-1 side is clean, no fog, and we're ready to close it up.
Ну да, там типа видео
The hatch cover.
Хорошо.
Okay, so we are getting the video and your commentary. Unintelligible.
Выполняем.
Are we go?
Выполняем.
You are go station.
Принято, выполняем.
Putting that into work.
With the departing crew of Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi inside their soon-to-depart Soyuz spacecraft, Andrei Borisenko will begin the work now to close the Rosviet module hatch, at which point he, on the station side of the docking interface, and Anatoly Ivanishin on the Soyuz side of the docking interface will conduct leak checks to make sure we have a tight seal prior to the depressurization of the vestibule passageway that will be the precursor to the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Space Station.
По стороне свет. 28.
Пока не выдаем.
Please stand down. Do not send the command.
Можно сейчас видать?
We are go to send the command.
Нет, по нашему указанию.
That's a negative. Only on our.
And Borisenko now in the process of securing the hatch on the station side of the Soyuz Rosviet module interface. Again, while we were in a loss of signal period, the crew made their way inside the Soyuz, that being Rubins, Ivanishin, and Onishi, closing the hatch on the Soyuz at about 4:12 p.m. Central Time.
Все, помыкаюсь СГ-1. СГ-2.
Moscow Station, space to ground. Space to ground 2. Go ahead on space to ground 2.
Люк со стороны МИМ-1 закрыт.
The hatch on the MRM-1 side is closed. Copy.
As you look at Andrei Borisenko, now a view outside the International Space Station, a great view of the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle in the center section of that Soyuz, which is currently docked to the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station, are the three departing crew members, as they are now in the process of conducting leak checks on their side of the docking interface, as is Borisenko on the station side of the docking interface to Rosviet. The bulbous portion at the bottom of your screen with the Russian Cyrillic letters Soyuz, that's the orbital module, or the top section of the Soyuz, with the docking probe and all of the docking avionics that associate with a Soyuz vehicle. In the center section, that again is the descent module, the only section of the Soyuz that survives with the crew for a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. And of course, at the rear of the Soyuz, or you see with the solar arrays in the top section, that's the instrumentation and propulsion module responsible for all of the maneuvering of the Soyuz, including the deorbit burn that is scheduled at 10:06 and 35 seconds p.m. this evening. It will be a 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing, a braking maneuver to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit to begin its descent back through the Earth's atmosphere, targeted for a landing at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time, 11:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Eastern Time this evening, 9:59 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning, 1 hour 55 minutes after sunrise. Just to recap, while we were in a loss of signal period through the tracking and data relay satellite system, Kate Rubins, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Takoya Onishi said farewell to their three colleagues remaining on board the International Space Station, made their way through the hatchway into the Soyuz MS-01 vehicle, and closed the hatch out of our view. Andrei Borisenko on the station side then closed the Rosviet module hatch at the docking interface. The Soyuz hatch closed at 4:12 p.m. Central Time, 5:12 p.m. Eastern Time, and just a few minutes later, as you see there in this view, in the passageway of the Rosviet module, the Rosviet hatch closed just about 4 minutes after that.
Do you concur, Moscow? Affirmative. Copy and work.
Видал команды ССВП Т-7. Время 00.
7 command is sent.
Команда прошла.
The command went through successfully.
As the departing crew of Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi begin the early phase of their pre-undocking preparations, left behind on the station, the three newly arrived crew members, Shane Kimbrough, the new Expedition 50 commander. And again, Expedition 50 will begin officially at the time of undocking about 3 hours and 9 minutes from now. Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi will begin work to don their Sokol launch and entry suits after they perform leak checks on their side of the docking interface. That small vestibule passageway will be depressurized prior to the time of undocking, with the undocking scheduled at 7:35 p.m. Central Time, 8:35 p.m. Eastern Time.
SSVP command went through successfully. S11 message is illuminated. The transfer hatch is closed.
Команды ССВП отключение. Команда прошла.
SSVP system off command went through and the display is no longer illuminated.
Проверил. Транспарант С11. Переход люк закрыт. Пока.
And transfer hatch closed. S11 is no longer illuminated.
Резервы ССВП С16. Время 00:27.
At 00:27:10, we have deactivated the backup SSVP system. S16 command went through successfully, and
Сейчас отключаем.
D7 SSVP display confirmed.
Дал команду Т8 ССВП. Команда прошла 00:20.
At 00:27:40, the command for SSVP deactivation D8 went through successfully. Copy.
Все хорошо, далее открываем РПВ-1.
Now,
Включение ПКРД основной резервной.
please,
И вручную необходимо открыть ПКРД.
RD oxygen supply valve, open it manually. And now open the RPV1 valve. Copy and work. RPV1 valve is open at 00:28:30 and the pressure is stable.
This is Mission Control Houston as you look at a balcony view of the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow in the town of Korolyov. We will wrap up our coverage of the Soyuz hatch closing, the first of our 3 broadcasts today that will lead to the landing and return to Earth of the Expedition 49 crew under the command of Soyuz Commander Anatoly Ivanishin, joined by NASA flight engineer Kate Rubins and Takoya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Their 115-day mission in space nearing an end with the undocking of the Soyuz MSO-1 vehicle scheduled about 3 hours and 5 minutes from now, heading for a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 10:59 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time this evening, 9:59 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning, about an hour and 55 minutes after sunrise. Let's wrap up our coverage for now with a reminder, programming-wise, that we'll be back on the air at 7:15 p.m. Central Time, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time with our undocking coverage. Again, the trio departing the International Space Station, Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi, are now aboard their Soyuz MSO-1 vehicle. Hatches are closed between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. The crew in the process of Soyuz station docking interface before they begin the work to don their undocking coverage. For now, This is Mission Control Houston.